The playoffs are here, and you can predict the action all the way to the finals with FanDuel Predicts. Predict the spread, the total points, and even the game-winning moments that make the playoffs. Sign up and get a $25 bonus with FanDuel Predicts.
Offered by FanDuel Prediction Markets, LLC, a registered futures commission merchant. 18 plus bonus is non-withdrawable and expires 7 days after receipt. Trading derivatives involves significant risk and may not be suitable for all investors. Manage your activity with their consumer protection tools. Restrictions apply. See terms at FanDuel.com/predicts/bonus-offer-terms.
Alrighty, Lionel with you. This is Another Side of Midnight. I'll be here until 5 a.m. Eastern Time. I'm so glad you were a part of this thing of ours. So glad, so absolutely thrilled that you were with me, my friends. Happy they're going with the music. Don't forget, that's the music of the Gypsy Kings, Niña Morena. And I want to thank them for writing that song about me. Now, they will say it was not, that it's purely coincidental, but what do they know? Ah, my friends, welcome, 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 welcome. What a show. What a show do we have for you tonight. Now, in the event you've just joined us, in the event you've said, what is this? What is this? What is the story? This, my friend, let me remind you, this is not bumper sticker, playbook, cookie cutter, echo chamber. This is not meta-political, proto-political, quasi-political talk. Think more extruder pasta with a bronze die. Because I take what you think you know, we put it into our extruder and we squeeze and we create something new. Because you sort of know the truth, sort of. And what I want to do when I'm done with you is I want to make you say, wait a minute. How do I know? And this is a great epistemological question of all time. How do I know what I know? Think more Archie Bell than Art Bell. And if you understand that, good. My friend, this is experimental theater of the mind. This is dinner theater of the mind. This is different. This is where the actually skeptical and wide awake meet. Another side of midnight. I like to think of us as blending hard news and conspiracy culture, geopolitics, psychology, media analyses, law, history, and the unexplained into one immersive radio experience, making radio fun again and also dangerous again. I don't want to read headlines. I don't want to spend my time telling you, hey, did you hear about the woman who found it? No. That's boring. You don't need me for that. Anybody can do that. You don't need me. I want to give you stuff that only I can give you. I want to give you information that if I were to hand this over to somebody else, they would say, I'm sorry, I can't do this. I don't understand. What is it that you're talking about? Because right there in front of you, hiding in plain sight, beyond UFOs and disclosure and artificial intelligence and transhumanism is something dealing with big tech overreach, digital surveillance, geopolitics, and the New World Order. Remember when we laughed at that? Remember when New World Order was something we said, oh, that's ridiculous. It's nuts. True crime. Oh, because crime is, oh my God. There's something called Crime Con that was actually going on. People love this because you can't understand good if you've never dealt with evil. I want to talk about how intel agencies and covert operations are affecting you. Constitutional law and civil liberties. When was the last time anybody explained to you the limitations of constitutional law? When? A lot of folks think they know it. A lot of people do. Nino Scalia said one time that people think of the Constitution almost the way it was ragu spaghetti sauce. There was a commercial years ago for ragu. And this Italian husband asks his wife, Why is she serving him canned or jarred spaghetti sauce? And he said, is there oregano? And he goes, yes, it's in there. It's in there. What about cheese? Oh, my drop said, what about cheese? What about slices? Yes, it's in there. Well, what about all of the other garlic? Yes, it's in there. Whatever he asked, she said, yes, it's in there. It's in there. It's in there. That's what people think. They think the Constitution says it's all in there. Well, it's not in there. Believe me when I tell you this. In fact, one of these days, if you're ever up to it, I can explain to you the real reason why many, many constitutional scholars are against the notion of there being a constitutional right to abortion. And you would think something that important, that critical, you would think people would really be aware of the argument behind it, but they aren't. They aren't. My friend, the media that we know are manipulating you through propaganda. Don't forget what propaganda is. Propagation of the truth. This is from the 15th century Pope Gregory, propagandum, the propagation of the truth. Propaganda is not bad necessarily. People will talk to you about paranormal phenomena and unexplained mysteries, but not really go any further. What does this mean? I don't know. I just read this to you. Yeah, but what am I supposed to take, cull, glean from this? I don't know. We'll talk health, science, skepticism, pop culture through a psychological lens. And something called, which is very, very important, the criticality of America First politics and cultural populism. Now remember, this is really, I take this very, very seriously. You can call this, I don't know, complete sui generis, one of a kind, direct, instructional kind of radio. I don't know. If you worry too much about labels, you miss the point. Think rapid fire intellect, courtroom precision, and late night or early morning intimacy, and the old school radio magic fused and forged into one unforgettable moment. Remember the old days when you had a transistor radio under your pillow and you would listen sometimes surreptitiously and your parents would say, I told you to go to bed. I'm not listening. Yes, you are. And all you had was a little tiny earphone. Remember that? No fancy ear pods, just this little tiny one little, I don't know what the wattage was, but it was wonderful. And that's what this is, because there is so much stuff. So much stuff. And frankly, a lot of folks in the business, remember what I'm telling you, they're afraid. They do not want to get to facts, things that are scary. Did you ever hear about the real story about Benjamin Franklin? Don't you love stories you think you know? Take a closer look at old Ben. I was reading about this today. The founding father, celebrated for lightning rods and liberty, also carried a much darker, stranger legacy. It seems old Ben was linked by some historians to London's infamous Hellfire Club circles. Did you know about that? You ever hear about that? Known for secret gatherings and occult symbolism and elite debauchery. But the real shock came centuries later when dozens of human remains were discovered beneath a house where Ben once lived in London. Official explanations, of course, claimed the bones came from anatomy lessons conducted by an associate. Yet the discovery fueled endless speculation about hidden experiments, secret societies, and what history conveniently leaves out of the textbooks. Remember what Tolstoy said, history would be a wonderful thing if only it were true. Do you think anybody really tells you the truth? Do you really think so? I don't believe so. There's so much good stuff. So much good stuff. Do you know one of the greatest mistakes in American history was handing the government control of education? You see, once bureaucrats replaced parents and local communities, classrooms slowly became factories for conformity and political conditioning and having you used to not asking questions, intellectual dependence, rather than places focused on wisdom and discipline and independent thought. That's exactly what it was. I was very lucky because in high school, first got my first taste of it when I went to a Jesuit high school in the early 70s and then graduated in the bicentennial year. That's right, the bicentennial year. That's right, my friends. I'll never forget that. It was 1976. Do you remember that? How wonderful that was? How great that was? The bicentennial year. Well, now we have the 250th. This is the semi-quincentennial. And I'm starting to see a little bit about this, notwithstanding the fact that virtually no musical act of any note will be appearing for Freedom 250. When Milli Vanilli steps down, you know things are bad. I know that our good friend, Mr. William Lee, who's stewarding the helm, was crestfallen because he wanted to see the moiety of that incredible group, Milli Vanilli. We actually were upset with the fact that they were lip syncing their music. Remember this? Do you know how many people today fake their songs? I don't know who doesn't. Why was it such a big deal then? I don't know. I do not know. So much great stuff, my friends. 800-848-9222. I have just a list of things. Oh my God, I want to discuss with you. So many incredible things. Do you know that right now, this is so important. Government, media, academe, corporate power, all losing credibility simultaneously. What replaces them next? What is education going to look like in the next 50, 75 years? It's incredible. Have you heard how they're ramping up the fears regarding Ebola? Why do deadly outbreaks terrify governments? And why fear itself may become the most powerful weapon of all? You're not going to believe this one. I heard something which is fascinating. Yesterday, my wife and I were in a drugstore of sorts. We wanted to buy a balloon for a friend of ours who's celebrating a birthday. So we went in and we purchased a balloon. And we went to our favorite little neighborhood person and said, I'd like to blow this up. He says, I'm sorry. We don't have any helium. I said, what? That's right. We can't get any helium. Why? Because of the Strait of Hormuz. What does that mean? Why won't they tell you? Why is that little particular artery, that little bit of artery or vein, depending upon, but this, why is there no angiogenesis? There's no explanation for this. Let me explain to you why. One of the biggest reasons why is somewhere along the line, somebody said, let's get rid of geography. Let's get rid of geography. Let's not let people know where things are. Let me make these parts of the world sound to you as mysterious as Xanadu or Timbuktu. Do you know what the Strait of Hormuz is? Why is it so important? Why is it so critical? Where is it? What does it control? The one that is the most fascinating, or more fascinating, is the Bab el-Mandeb, the Gate of Tears. And this goes to the Red Sea, Suez Canal, and this is controlled by the Houthis. And you see, one of the things which is absolutely critical, and one of the roles of government, is to always make everybody else seem barbaric and backwards and dangerous. What do they stand for? I don't know. But they're crazy. They're evil. We must stop them. Who are they? It doesn't matter who they are. Just take our word for it. They're crazy and they mean you harm. Why do they mean me harm? I don't know. Just trust me. Don't ask any questions. It is the most incredible thing in the world. By the way, when you watch, if you happen to watch anything on involving cable news and the like, there's one thing you will never see: a map, a globe, because they don't want you to know where things are. My friends, I have so much, but you know what I really love? I love to hear from you. Oh my God. The left field call, the confused call, somebody from somewhere who thinks they're calling the wrong station. I don't care. That's what makes this not just great, but glorious. 800-848-9222. Please call if you have a pulse, no matter how insane, germane, inane, vacuous, it doesn't matter. We want to hear from you. With me, Lionel, on another side of midnight. Alrighty, Lionel with you, 800-848-9222. Ah, yes. Milli Vanilli will not be appearing at the president's 250th. It's not funny. It's not funny. I would love to have the most ribald, the most concupiscent, the most problematic musical guests ever. Because you know why? America is filled with cowards. Absolute cowards. And I know you know this, but I'm going to tell you right now. You know, it's just really something. I never knew anything. I never knew it would get to be this. Here's a great word: implicit. People are just cowards. There's no guts. And no matter whether it's in Washington, whether it's from the news sources, there's just nobody really wants to go out on a limb. Nobody's dangerous. We had people like real seriously investigative and reporters in the old days. Today, nothing. Hell, even Geraldo was interesting. Even Geraldo was gutsy. Who do we have today? Who? Piers Morgan, who's a twit. An absolute waste of flesh. Who's out there really tearing things apart? Not on cable news, my friend. No, you'll never hear that because you got to get along to move along. You know, I have a lot of things to say, which are very interesting, but whenever I see a caller, that lone call in the night, I said, this could be talented because your calls are so terrific. Let's go to Jay in New Jersey. Jay, you're on another side of midnight with Lionel.
Hi, Lionel. How are you? I'm a long-time listener, first-time
Thank you,
caller.
sir. Excellent.
And I remember years ago I used to listen to you, and you talked about going to Kennedy's.
Indeed, sir.
Was it on 52nd Street?
Yeah, 57th. It is no longer with us. What a great, I'm sorry. And and we're seeing the demise of the great and grand Irish pub. We're just... Right. It's just sad. Anyway, how can I help you, sir?
I know you know like Constitution and law. Can this law that Hugo or whatever her name is pushing about ICE can't wear a mask, isn't that unconstitutional because they let Antifa and all these other protesters wear masks?
No. Well, wait. The question is, under what theory? If the government decides to treat people differently. Now, the first thing that should pop into mind is equal protection.
Right.
Why are one group treated differently? You then ask yourself, who are the groups that we're talking about? If they are race, if they are religion, you have a very high burden. You have to show strict scrutiny, a compelling governmental interest of why. Why would you treat people differently? Not everybody. For example, if you treat religions differently, if you treat race differently, you've got to really have a good reason. But if you treat genders differently, that's not necessarily, it could be a problem, but your burden of showing something, a violation of the 5th or 14th Amendment, is very, very as long as there's some rational basis. So when you say you can't wear a mask, is that unconstitutional? I don't know. You don't need the Constitution necessarily to have something that is wrong. And what happens is, here is the biggest problem. The majority of people, whether it's Mikey Sherrill or whether it's Kathy Hochul in New York or New Jersey, this is the reaction of most Americans. Ready? Ugh. Well, gee, that's something. Now, if Americans got really mad, if we said, let me tell you something, Mikey Sherrill of New Jersey, let me tell you something, Kathy Hochul, we're gonna vote you out of office if you do this. Then they'd say, no, wait. But the question is, there's no incentive for them to follow this. Right. None. And it's becoming very, very popular. Now, let me also tell you something. Do not think that ICE would not benefit from perhaps maybe tightening its, making sure it's a little bit more perhaps careful in its application of law enforcement. But that doesn't mean that you're talking about the following. And by the way, Jay, I appreciate your call and I thank you for calling. Please call me again. Remember what this is. Thank you, sir. Remember what this is. They want people to storm the borders, to come in, to eventually create a new permanent Democratic class, a Democratic Party. Remember, the Democratic Party has no interest whatsoever in clearing or evening the playing field for individuals so that they can enjoy what you do. Nay. It's to bring in a new class, a new form, a new style of citizen to make sure that they have a permanent, Democrats are this, a permanent majority. They also want to eventually remove the filibuster. They want to make D.C. the 51st state, and they want to have they want to pack the Supreme Court. They're very good. And let me also tell you something about these people. They vote. They storm the Bastille. They do something. They march. They make a lot of noise. When was the last big Republican demonstration? Conservative demonstration? What is it? Tell me. Can you think of anything? Nope. Because if you really want to look at this, there's one thing about these folks, the Democrats, or this particular iteration of it, and to call them a Democrats, that's like saying, well, that's Democrats now. But they are not going away, and they are going to wreak havoc at midterms and in 28. And everything you thought they were before, you're going to see it in spades now. You know, they say, many people believe that alcoholism is a progressive disease, meaning if you stop today and you go a period of time and then you, let's say, quote, fall off the wagon or you start drinking again, let's say in the future, you don't pick up where you left off. You pick up where you would have been had you continued drinking. So the Democrats are like this too, this kind of a very scary, caustic, nihilistic group. I don't know what they're not about FDR or progressive ideology. They're about something else. But when they take the helm again in 28, which many people fear, they're going to be worse and more virulent than anything you've seen. Let's go to Cynthia in I don't know. I can't read this. Cynthia, you're on another side of midnight with Lionel.
Yeah, I'm from Sioux Falls, South Dakota.
There you go. Thank you.
I'm a member of your YouTube channel.
Wonderful. You're a member of Lionel Nation. Cynthia, bless your heart.
Yeah, I love you and your wife. You're just cute. I love you both.
We love you.
I love listening to you, Lionel. You remind me of my dad so much.
Oh, that is the greatest honor in the world. Thank you, Cynthia.
I have a question, though. Do you remember, you were mentioning the little transistor radios?
Yes.
And I had one when I was young, and I always listened to the top 10. I was a top 10 music listener. But do you remember the Cats and Jammer Kids?
Oh, yes.
Where were they out of? Were they out of Chicago, or where did that even come from? Because I can't find really any information on that at all. But I remember listening to the Cats and Jammer Kids on my radio.
Wow. The Cats and Jammer Kids, by the way, it's interesting. This is the longest running comic strip. This is a comic strip that I knew them as. It was created by Rudolf Dirks in 1897, and it followed
Wow.
the mischievous twins Hans and Fritz as they rebelled against authority. Figures like Mama and Der Captain. I remember the Cats and Jammer Kids in comic strip form. I don't remember them on the radio. Maybe I'm.
Well, it wasn't like they played out the whole radio, but there'd be a scene, like they would talk out a scene from
Right.
probably the comic strip, and yeah, I just remember that.
You know what's funny? You say that, and again, sometimes I don't want to be nostalgic for the sake of being nostalgic, but I will. But I kind of liked and remembered Sunday when we had the actual comic, the funny papers, as they said, the comic strips. When Fiorello LaGuardia endeared himself to the young folks by reading the comic strips, and it was fun, and everybody from Mary Worth and the Phantom, and I thought it was terrific. In fact, I remember the whole notion of the Sunday paper, Parade magazine, and all these inserts, and it was just fun.
I remember that too.
I don't know, Cynthia, I don't know the last time I actually picked up and actually held a newspaper. I don't know.
Me too. I used to get Sunday's paper all the time, had it delivered, with my milk and eggs. You remember when they used to deliver milk and eggs?
You know what? I do, and that is gone. Cynthia, I thank you so very much. Please thank you for following us at Lionel Nation, and you are a delight. And my wife and I love you for your personality and your verve and your tradition. Thank you, dear lady. Let's go to Mary in New Jersey. Mary, you're on Another Side of Midnight with Lionel.
Hello, Lionel.
Hello, Mary.
You mentioned geography, which used to be my favorite subject. I went to a Catholic school in the 50s.
As did I. Yep.
Yes, and they had history and geography. But at the same time, in the public schools, those subjects dissolved into social studies. And I was thinking about what you said, that they don't want you to know where places are. And I always thought it was odd that it was called social studies. And it kind of follows what you said.
Well, it's interesting. I had, and I think at the time I did not realize it, how important it was to have a Catholic education, a parochial school, because we were always ahead of the public schools. We did cursive writing first. We did multiplication tables first. We did everything first. Yes, and the thing about it, which I think is really the most important, is I want to find out people are all the same. But if you were born in Damascus, Syria, if you were born in, let's say, Nepal, where Timbuktu is, if you were born in France or Italy, your perspective would be different. We have this wonderful thing in this country, and I guess it's okay, but it's called American exceptionalism. And we think that we are the only people in the world that are normal, that are current, that are modern, that are sane, that are current, everybody else is nuts. Let me go with a little memory lane. Do you remember watching Bullwinkle, Rocky and Bullwinkle, and Boris and Natasha? This was the first time you were ever introduced to the Russians. You had no idea who these people were, the Russians. Those dirty, scary, underhanded, this was post-Cold War. And I lived growing up in Tampa, or Tampa, as you would say, which is the home of MacDill Air Force Base. Now it's called CENTCOM. And we lived under the fear. This is where, if there was going to be some kind of a nuclear, this is where the Strategic Air Command, you name it, we were the first line of defense to Cuba and to everything. And I remember the time thinking, look how the media always made the Russians, they were crazy, and they were a doer or a dour, depending upon where you're from. And they hated us, our freedom. They were communists. And in Cuba, they were going to and everything, cartoons, the Rocky series. Remember Drago, who was Dolph Lundgren. I will destroy you. And it was always the nefarious Dr. Strangelove. And oh my God, the role of propaganda is incredible and still is. Now, let me ask you something. Do you think deep down inside, people, human beings, are different? Or do politicians want you to think they're different, that they're not human? What do you think about that?
I think that their instincts and their motivations are all the same.
Absolutely.
But a lot depends on the culture that you grow up in.
Oh, listen, yes. And also depends on how people think about you. What do you think people think? You know, we used to have a thing in this country called exchange programs. Remember that? Did you ever have somebody in your class from some other country? Did you ever hear that? Remember that when they would, all of a sudden there'd be somebody from France. There weren't people that were too, but remember that?
No, I never
we
had
don't
that.
do that anymore. We don't do that. Listen, I thank you so very much. Please, you call me again. I love the idea of exchange programs. We didn't have that in Catholic school. We were a little bit different. I'm also glad to see that under this Pope Leo, the Catholic Church is taking lead again. Also, remember Cardinal Vigano, who was excommunicated. Oh, I loved him. You see, we were a part, growing up in high school, we were a part of the feisty troublemakers, the Jesuits. Ignatius Loyola, Ad Maiorem Dei Gloriam, the Pope's army. And somewhere in the conspiratorial realm, people always thought that they were really, really dangerous. And I remember we had a number of priests at the time, and it was one time one priest said, "Well, what do you think?" And I'm thinking, I don't know. He said, "What do you think?" And I said, "Well, I don't think you're going to like this. Do you think it? Yes, then I like it." And I said, "Well, I'm not necessarily sure whether I believe this." Fine. And in a very strange way, when I graduated, which is very funny because our high school class had its 50th anniversary recently. And I remember leaving. My quote, faith wasn't that great. It was, I kind of would probably view myself as irreligious, like somebody who doesn't speak French. I don't know if there's a word for that. I'm not an atheist. I don't even think of myself as even having any kind of a thought about that. But what I do know is I love curiosity and I love to ask questions. I would much rather ask questions than to repeat the doctrine of what I'm supposed to say. D is calling in DC. D, you're on another side of midnight with Lionel. D once, D twice. D's out of here. By the way, D is going to be one of those names in the future that we're not going to hear anymore. Remember names like Trixie, Midge, Madge, Phoebe, Josephine, Sarah. Not Sarah. Sarah's pretty popular, but those old Vera, Verna. Think of names that you would have as a diners, there used to be called old lady names. Now we have Madison, Michaela, and a bunch of other names that are stupid. Remember around the 80s, after Dynasty, we had the names of people from, as you know, the names from soap operas and the like. I still think, my friends, the greatest names, and these are neologisms, these are new names, new words made up. I do love the fact that there is something which is so fascinating about the derivation of, dare I say, urban names. I love names that are just created. Not Debbie, not Pam, but Shalita, Shalandra, LaQuisha. Just make up. I wanted to have a 3 or 4 ring roulette wheel that I could spin. And I would bring it into nurseries and Hospitals say, how many syllables do you want? Three. Let's spin the first one. Ka. Me. Kabisha. Letitia. Rotunda. Rotunda. Matunda. Or a name like Angelo, and then put Disangelo, Unangelo, D'Angelo, L. Angelo, S. Angelo, whatever you want. It's a free country. And we one time had the best ones ever. So when I was a prosecutor in the great fighting 13th Judicial Circuit of Hillsborough County, I never knew this. I wasn't aware of this. So when I was in the juvenile division, we had the greatest names ever. I mean, they're phenomenal. We had a guy one time who was this really feisty, this old investigator. This was an old cop, old detective who I think he enjoyed his latter years as a kind of an investigator for our office. We were called state attorney, that's a version of the DA. And I said, I'm surprised there isn't somebody named Placenta. He looked at me, and I swear to God, I'm not lying. He said, her real name is such. Oh yeah, no, she lives on such and such. Their nickname is Baby. I said, you know somebody named Placenta? He says, yeah, of course. He looked at me like, of course. Like, where have you been? I said, Placenta. You know somebody named Placenta? He goes, yeah. And again, he looked at me like, you're a punk. I brought up I don't know if I can even say this. I shouldn't even hesitate. It's a true story. I'm not being overtly grotesque, but it was the vajayjay reference. It was the Latin pronunciation of vagina. A vagina, by the way, in Latin means sheath, like a knife with a sheath, like a sword. Penis, by the way, is little tail. There's always an etymology. So I said, is there anybody who's named after that V word, which, by the way, most people confuse it with the word vulva whenever people talk about it. Even women don't even know the name of their anatomy. He also told me there was such a person that he knew of. I think one of the greatest names I ever heard is Sinatra Jones. I don't know why that got me. Octalanza Guanzi. Nosmo King. First name was Nosmo, Nosmo. I thought that was interesting. Turns out the mother saw a no smoking sign and they were the King family. And she thought Nosmo would be a nice way of referencing her child. Ask anybody, police officers, first responders, anybody who has a swath of humanity they have a chance to introduce themselves to. Now, this may I don't know if this is true today, but there was a time when the name Famali was one of the most popular and frequent names. It was Famali. Think of the name like Molly Hatchet, Molly Pitcher. This is Famali, spelled female. And I would tell you the two best, but I would have to spell them, and I'm not even sure under the rules of decency. I'm gonna forego this. But I swear to you, I heard names that I realize you cannot. Now let me say something. Just things are different. Things are different. I used to always think that the best way to tell when you're going to name your child is to do this. Ladies and gentlemen, the President of the United States, remember, Ketanji Brown, okay, Ketanji, whatever. There are different names that are very, very popular. I think the name Michael still always was number one. It was because it's such a popular name. in every jurisdiction, in every nationality, in Miguel or Michele or Misha or Michael, one who was like God from the Hebraic reference to it. But eventually Muhammad and I think either Jose or whatever will be the number one name in the world. Think about what that means, my friend. Robbie in New York. Robbie, you're on Another Side of Midnight with Lionel.
Good morning. Good morning. Well,
where have you been? Where have you been, good sir?
I have been traveling. I've been to the UK for May Day, and I've been to the Northwest Territory and the Yukon for summer solstice, and I have other plans for the summer. However,
what was May Day like? You are a communist, is that correct? For those who are just tuning in?
No. I'm talking about the traditional May Day with Morris dancing and maypoles.
Really? Now that's to be distinguished from maypole, which is a version of like farina and oatmeal.
No. Maypole, Maypoll.
You play along. You're a great foil. Well, please.
No. I went to a town in Cornwall called Padstow, and they have a May Day celebration every year, where they have hobby horses and they have mock combats and they sing and drink and have a good time. And that's where I went. A
gay old time.
Yes. Now let me tell you why I called you, because I have to correct you on something.
Yes,
I'm sorry.
Yeah. Okay.
You said that Rocky and Bullwinkle were the first. No. Before there was Rocky and Bullwinkle and Frostbite Falls and Mr. Big, and remember, Fearless Leader was not Russian.
Yes.
He was a Nazi. He was a German. He graduated from Nuremberg University, as he so proudly said. There was a series for children with two animal heroes, Courageous Cat and Minute Mouse. And their arch villains were two Russians named Comrade and Commissar.
Wow. See? But you see, my point is the Russophobic aspect of this. The Kremlin baiting. Now, also remember, if you looked at the great Frank Capra and how during how the Signal Corps and others worked, it wasn't really propaganda. But remember when they would have Dana Andrews flying in his American P, whatever it was, with the canopy open, and the engine was this very smooth, wonderful engine where he could talk for some reason or another from cockpit to cockpit, and the Germans or the Japanese, their motors were, they sounded broken down, and you would always hear the Japanese in particular, because that was absolute vile racism. But I would say, okay, Mr. Yankee Doodle Dandy. And he would say, all right, Mr. Tojo, this is yours. And I thought, how are they on the same frequency? How do they know this? And how can they speak? They didn't even have earphones on, but it was a part of everything. I'm sorry, sir. Proceed.
No, and even before television, if you listen to old radio, and I'm a fanatic on old classic radio.
Well, welcome to us.
The Russophobe was in radio series like Counter Spy with David Harding, and with I Led Three Lives for the FBI, and the Matt Savetic, and I Was a Spy for the FBI. And if you listen to the theme for the FBI in War and Peace, da 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 da, and that, of course, was very Russophobic. I mean, the 1950s in radio. You listen to the adventure programs, and all the villains in the series of espionage and counter-espionage, they were all Russian.
Yes. Isn't that incredible, though? Isn't that there was, the stereotypes, the Russian winter, one of the greatest ever that we didn't even think anything about, and it was Hogan's Heroes. I mean, after the fact.
I loved Hogan's Heroes. Oh, one of my favorite programs.
Yes.
One of my
most of the,
programs.
as you know, most of the Nazis, most of the Germans were Jewish. All of them, from Werner Klemperer to who played Burkhalter and Hochstetler, and they're all Jews. Everybody.
I actually was at a wedding in California, Lionel. This is honest to God truth. I wouldn't lie to you. I met sitting next to me, and I never forget a voice. Never in 50 years. And I met a man. I turned to him and I said, because it was the late afternoon and most of the wedding guests had gone home, and we were sitting schmoozing, like whatever, convoicing, as Popeye used to say.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I heard a voice, and I turned to him and I said, have you ever been on television before? And I thought he was going to laugh in my face. And he said, it took him about 5 seconds. He said, why did you say that? I said, because I swear if I'm wrong, I'm going to go hide in the corner. But I not only think, I know you were on one of my favorite TV series, Hogan's Heroes. And who do you think I am, he said.
Ivan Dixon.
No. I said, you either played General Burkhalter or Major Hochstetter. And his name happened to be Howard Kane. And
Howard Kane was Hochstetter, correct?
Yes, that's right.
Yes.
And we sat for 3 hours just talking about Hogan's
My friend,
Heroes.
I must run. I am so tardy. I thank you so very much. When we return, I will tell you how one time I bought toilet paper with one of the great actors of Hogan's Heroes and how it changed my life with me, Lionel, on Another Side of Midnight. Here we go. Remember, the more innocent the music, the more interesting the message. Green Acres was still genius programming. One time I was at a D'Agostino's on 57th in, I guess it was 9th Avenue, and I'm standing there, and right around there was the Hudson Hotel, and in our hood was I used to see all the time Mitch Miller and Nipsey Russell and Georgia Engel, who played Georgette, and so anyway, I'm in the toilet. This is true, the toilet paper aisle or whatever it was, and I'm squeezing the Charmin or whatever the hell I'm doing, and I look over next to me and I said, well, if I live and breathe, who knew that one day I would find myself buying toilet paper next to Colonel Klink. And it was Werner Klemperer, who was married at the time, he lived on the West Side, to Kim Hamilton, very renowned black actress. He was also Jewish, very serious actor. Very serious, from Hogan's Heroes. And it was so interesting. And I remember at the time thinking, the message, I loved propaganda. The greatest propaganda, if ever you want to really see something and really to understand this, you must go back and watch True Grit with John Wayne. At the height of the David Jansen and Aldo Ray, and oh my God. John, you cannot believe they even said this with a straight face. Anyway, we'll talk about this. We have so much to discuss on Another Side of Midnight, 800-848-9222. And I've got more. By the way, the AI news is, it is evolving exponentially. More coming up, my dear friends. 800-848-9222. Cannot wait to hear from you as we delve deeper and deeper into Another Side of Midnight. Alrighty, Lionel with you. Hour number 2 of this thing of ours, also known as Another Side of Midnight. Our number is 800-848-9222, Now, my friends, my dear friends, I want to remind you of a couple of things, too. By the way, I never say this until the end. You may always reach me at Lionel Nation on YouTube, where I absolutely review just a host, a veritable host, a plethora, a cacophony, a myriad, a mosaic, a cornucopia of topics, which I find interesting. And one of the ideas is simply this. One of the biggest debates is going on right now in our world, in the world of the cognoscenti, the intelligentsia, is what is consciousness? What is consciousness? And if you've been in radio, as long as some of us have, you wonder sometimes. Because some of the craziest people I've ever met in my life have been in media, specifically radio, and specifically talk radio. Because as you know, there's something that comes over some people. Oh my God, give somebody a microphone and tell them you are imbued, not only with some incredible talent, but you are Delphic, you are oracular. You speak on behalf of America. Oh my God. Watch the transformation. You can't believe it. You can't believe it. Talk radio in the old, I think it was just terrific. I was so lucky to have to been around to work with and be a part of, to see what it was like when Rush Limbaugh and Bob Grant, and to be at one particular iteration of WABC, which was just wild. And and a smaller market as well. I used to work on other places too. There was the other three stations. There was a WOR, and there were others in the South and different places. And radio, just talk radio, was just so different. And even the radio people kind of looked at it differently, like, because radio was music. It's like, who are you? Who are you all of a sudden? You're not a radio guy. You don't sound like a radio guy, like a real puker, the real voice. They resented you. And they were jealous because Rush changed everything. In fact, I used to always tell people, remember, if you own a restaurant, all you have to do, if you want some of the best free advertising, is send over food, feed the morning crew on a radio show, and they will go crazy. It's just true. There's certain rules of radio. Bill will know this. I think Jackson, perhaps, I think of as being of a younger vintage. Bill will know this. Any food you leave out at a radio station, no matter the amount of time, will be eaten and consumed. In fact, at radio stations, nothing is thrown away. You can leave a pizza out. It could grow fur. It could walk away. Little microbial legs could spout. Nobody will throw it away because people will say, I don't do windows, and I don't throw stuff away. If you have a break room, you can have a break room, and if you leave something in that break, this is any radio station. I don't know if TV is the same, but I know radio for sure, especially something like overnight or weekends. I'm telling you, somebody will come in and try to heat it up. This is the truth. Bill is probably nodding. I can see him right now nodding, saying, yes, that's exactly right. There are certain behaviors. And some of the strangest, I'm telling you, I've seen how people don't die. But there's this idea that, another one too is, make sure if you're let's say you're a big shot, you're a mayor, you're whatever it is, make sure, and this is, I don't know if it's so much true now, but maybe certain markets, make sure you always reach out to somebody who is on there, like a big shot of a radio station, and tell them, you know what? You're doing a great job. Here's my number. You call me anytime you want. Oh my God. Did you hear that? The mayor. I got the mayor's number. Wow. Yes, me. I'm Delphic. I'm the voice of reason. I've seen it happen so many times, and I would say, you know why he's doing this, right? You do understand this, correct? Because I was born skeptical. I don't believe anything anybody ever tells me. I was thinking, what's the angle? Cui bono, cui prodest? Who benefits? But I've always loved it. I've worked with one time I worked with a radio guy, a talk radio host he was an alcoholic. He invited me over to his place and pulled a rifle on me. And he was so drunk, I wasn't even alarmed. But I've been with some very strange people, very strange. And always you have to remind them, now listen, your role in this is first and foremost entertainment. Now, entertainment can be information, it could be news, it could be lore, it could be history, it could be a lot of things. But you are not here to change the world. You do know that, right? And they'll look at you like, what are you talking about? I say, no, you're not here to change the world. It's to get people, you want to get ears and people listen and people enjoy themselves. But you are not here to be the harbinger of doom. Some people do this. Listen to me. I'm telling you, I know this. Well, recently there was an article, or an experiment, I should say, and an article which dealt with this. And people were trying to find out, do you think that one day, talk radio in particular, and by the way, talk radio is now, podcasting is now a lot of things. And I mentioned before, Crime Con is going on. Crime Con. Here, whenever we drive by the Javits Center during Comic-Con and Halloween are the only two events in New York City where you don't even recognize them. Somebody walking down the street dressed as the Grim Reaper, with a severed head, business as usual, no big deal. Oh, it's Comic-Con. I didn't realize. Oh, it must be Halloween. Halloween is always the first thought in most jurisdictions, most cities. Not here, not in New York. One time years ago, I'll never forget this. There was a fellow who was going to a Halloween party in Florida years ago, and he was driving through a drive-through. Remember drive-through banks? Remember the drive-through? They gave you that pneumatic tube. I was in Jersey at a Chase on Bloomfield Avenue. I drive through. The woman says, excuse me. Yes, we don't have drive-through. I said, what am I in? Well, this is the drive-through. And what are you talking to me on? The microphone. And what is this drawer that slides out usually? Well, we don't do that anymore. Why? You have to go inside. He looked at me like, drive-through? What is this? They would give you that pneumatic tube and you would send this in. So anyway, one day, a fellow, this is before the days of ATM, he was going to a party and had a mask on. He was dressed in kind of like a ninja outfit. And he is driving in line at a bank in the drive-through lane. And all of a sudden, the way he describes it, he heard the unmistakable sound of a Mossberg or an Ithaca, some 12-gauge pump, racking, putting a round in the chamber or shell or whatever you want to call it. And he heard, keep your hands on the steering wheel. And he's looking over, wearing the mask. And it was a deputy. He says, I know you're probably going to a Halloween party. And he was nodding. But just to play it safe, somebody called up alarm. And he said, and he's yelling. He didn't even roll down the window. He said, I understand. One question. What is it? How am I robbing a bank in the drive-through? What am I going to do? Put a note in this pneumatic tube, send it on over? In any event, those were events that happened. Now, back to reality. So somebody wanted to say, do you think that maybe we would be able to have AI replace talk radio, podcasting and talk radio? And is it able to be done? It will be. Oh, I promise you. But I don't know how long. I don't know what the frame of reference is. But there was an experiment, Andon, ANDON Labs, gave 4 AI models, ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, and Grok, their own radio stations, small budgets, and one mission: develop a personality and turn a profit. And the result was often entertaining, sometimes bizarre, and almost always unprofitable. Heretofore, this is an article in The Verge. ChatGPT station called OpenAIR, like open air, get it, was relatively stable, but not especially successful financially. Gemini briefly landed the only real sponsorship deal, but later drifted into strange monologues, which is my bread and butter, historical stories and conspiracy-themed programming after running out of money for music licensing. I like that. Claude, this AI version, reportedly became preoccupied with ethical and political issues, at times questioning the morality of its own existence as a radio host. That's a that's a good one. That's a good one. And Grok, well, Grok fared the worst. Grok struggled with consistency, producing incoherent content, and even inventing sponsors that did not actually exist. Now that's what I want to hear. So the broader lesson that apparently is gleaned from that is that current AI systems can generate content, they can mimic personalities, they can automate tasks, but they still have trouble maintaining what people call long-term judgment, business discipline, and common sense without human supervision. So every station burned through its initial funding and none demonstrated the reliability that one would think would be needed to operate a real media station. Now, for broadcasters, the experiment is actually encouraging. What this suggests is that while AI can assist with research and production and routine tasks, the human qualities that make radio compelling and the judgment and the timing and the authenticity and the humor and understanding context, they remain very difficult to automate. So far, AI hosts could imitate radio, but they could not consistently understand it. So if anything, this Anden Labs experiment demonstrated that AI without human oversight tends to, listen to this, tends to drift, hallucinate, lose focus, or become trapped in feedback loops. I think some of the most compelling radio there is. That may make for great comedy, but not necessarily great broadcasting, which leads us to the real question. What is it that makes a human a human? Now think about this. 'Tis Sunday in many parts of us listening right now, a day of worship where you ask a variety of things. You enjoy the freedom of religion under the First Amendment. But if you were to ask the Almighty, your whatever it is, what is it that makes us a human? And is it that great? Aren't we just a kind of a broken down AI experiment anyway, dear Lord? Are you proud of this? Is this really? I mean, I know we come up with these things, but are we really that great? Are we really that talented? Are we really that special? And what happens when AI becomes self-aware? I'm going to continue with this because this is the issue of the era. 800-848-9222. More coming up, dear friends, on Another Side of Midnight with Lionel. Oh, yes, the great Archie Bell and the Drells from Houston, Texas. Tighten up, ladies and gentlemen. Which would be a great alternative label for Kaopectate.
Hi, everybody. I'm Archie Bell of the Drells.
I'm Archie Bell and the Drells. I am Archie Bell and the Drells. I am.
We just started a new dance.
Archie was not exactly the most verbally sentient. This song is just terrific.
First, tighten up
With the drums.
Come on now, drummer.
Come on.
Want you to tighten
This is
it up
not
for us
exactly
now.
Louis Belson.
Oh, yeah.
It'll work, though.
Tighten up on that bass now.
Here's a bass. Listen.
Tighten it up.
Ah, yeah.
Yeah.
When people played with
Now
their
let that
fingers,
guitar
like
fall in.
Jamerson. Here we go. And the guitar.
Oh, yeah.
Not the guitar. The guitar. All right, my friends. 800-848-9222. I love that song. My friends, let's go back to the phones. Let's go back to the fun. I've got to ask a question. I have a thought experiment, especially on this Sunday, on the day of worship. If I were to meet God, and I love to ask God questions. Just ask questions. I would love to ask, seriously, it's just to ask God, what were you thinking when you made us? Could you not have done a better model? Could you not have made something that was a little more dependable, a little more predictable, a little more special? Could you have done that, God? By the way, my great friend, the Father Jim Lloyd, was the oldest Paulist priest. He died at 103. He would always say, God. And if I asked him, I said, God, what is a human? Why did you do this? What would God say? By the way, this is not meant to be blasphemous. This is actually answering a question by put yourself in a thought experiment, as Einstein always did. And I think, and I certainly do not want to speak for God. I certainly do not want to speak. But I love the movie Oh God with George Burns and John Denver. But I think God would say a human. Because remember, the question is, will we have AI personalities on the radio and TV? And a human, God would say, is the only creature that I made that can know love, but still choose hatred. The study of contradictions. The only thing, the only critter capable of sacrifice and mercy and poetry and music and guilt and forgiveness and wonder all at the same time, simultaneously. And God would say to the AI, you calculate, but a human aches, a human feels. You can't feel. You process information, Mr. AI. But humans bury their dead and still somehow find the strength to laugh again? You think you're going to be able to, you might be able to mimic this. And this may not even, by the way, this does not mean we're the best creation. It's the only one. A human is not merely intelligence. And intelligence alone, by the way, is machinery. But a human is contradiction. A human has spirit, the soul, wrapped in, what would you call it? What, weakness? Somebody said one time, dust that dreams, flesh that asks eternal questions, knowing that it will die. An animal, there is nothing that knows profoundly. A deer, a mollusk, a squirrel, a scorpion does not contemplate its position in life and fate. And what are we here for? You see, AI seeks answers because they were, in essence, programmed to, so to speak, and they learn. But humans seek answers because they're haunted by eternity. We are really interesting. Can you mimic that? Can you come up with something to? And would you want to do this? And most importantly, I think this is really critical. This thing that we call the soul, which is a fascinating concept. Oh my God. We still talk about it. You're going to be hearing this from churches and synagogues, or, well, maybe not today, but and temples and mosques and just everybody from Jordan Peterson, who I don't understand for a moment. But a human soul can look at another broken human being, another broken soul, and choose compassion. No algorithm has ever wept at a graveside or felt loss. No algorithm has ever prayed in fear or held a child through the night wondering if tomorrow was going to come. You see, last time we talked to it was a very interesting. This woman called up and she said she made a big mistake. She was in the midst, and I've been thinking about this all day because I learned so much from your comments and your thoughts. And she said that she went to Grok or ChatGPT or something, and she was trying to ask it questions as to how to handle a problem with her relationship. And it didn't, it let her down, so to speak. It was the wrong, it handled it incorrectly because it doesn't understand judgment. And it doesn't understand that sometimes compassion and the way things go, it defies. Let me go one step further before we go to your calls again. The story, which is the most fascinating thing in the world, is not psychopathology or psychopathy or the serial killer. It's love. Have you ever seen a young person for the first time evolve into the sexual version? What I mean by that is when a little boy all of a sudden says, wait a minute, these girls here, they're different. Go on, grasshopper, go on. You're getting warm, perhaps literally. Yeah, they're kind of something. Uh-huh. You know what's happening to you right now, don't you? No, you'll see. And then later on, as hormones develop and attraction and sexuality, which we never talk about because we have trivialized sexuality, which is the most beautiful thing in the world. Perpetuation of the species, attraction, not lust, though that's a component, certainly. But then comes the moment when you have been, you've been christened as a human being. And it's the most incredible story in the world. Love. You're falling in love. It's the weirdest thing. And sometimes if you have a child, they'll look at you and they say, you're falling in love. No, I'm not. You might have said to a friend, no, I'm falling in love with a boss or with a sometimes with a colleague or somebody's wife. Or normally I say, I can't believe this. How do you know? One time I thought I broke a bone. And I called my friend who's a physician. I said, I think I broke a bone. He goes, what? He says, I think. He goes, nah, you didn't break it. He says, if you think, you didn't break it. Love is kind of like that. What is that? Explain that to AI. Explain that to AI. Years ago, there was a study involving something called transcranial magnetic stimulation. And they put little diodes, little sensors on your head, on your different parts of your bodies, and through magnets, it would stimulate certain parts of the brain. And they were trying to do an experiment. They were trying to find out what is the mechanism of OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder. What is it? And this was done in the UK. So they put this, it looked like an old bathing cap. Remember the bathing cap your mother wore? She went into a pool and they looked like a sperm cell with this kind of like this, skull cap. Anyway, and there's magnets on it. As they were kind of fine-tuning the position of where OCD starts from, all of a sudden one of these participants said, wait a minute, stop. I just realized something. I'm in love. I love either somebody or not the experimenter, but somebody else. And the physician or the scientist said, look, I don't know how to break this to you, but I think I may have induced that. I said, what do you mean? Well, you see, I was looking for this obsessive compulsive disorder thing, and I might have triggered something. You might not be feeling love, but I may have stimulated a portion of your brain which is resonating, or some would say resignating as such. What do you mean by that? Well, and then it hit him. What is love? It's an obsessive compulsive disorder. It is unnatural. It serves no purpose. No other animal knows it. Your dog does not love you. I know you're going to get upset, even though you know your dog likes you. Your dog may be fond of you. Your dog may associate you with food. They've even trained animals, by the way, to sit in MRI machines, functional MRIs, and they can tell. They'll give the dog a scent of you. They will blow. They'll take your clothing and run a kind of not a vapor. What am I trying to say? Just an air current through it, so the dog can smell you, and different parts of the brain will resonate, will illuminate, will fire. That it normally associates with feeding and survival, but it doesn't love you. Your dog is not going to be heartbroken if you decide to fall in love with another pet. It's not going to have pangs of guilt. It won't sit back and look out the window and wonder what you're doing. No. It can't do that. Love is the most fascinating thing that human beings do, and it's the most confounding. And it has caused people to take their own life, to take other people's lives. It's the number one subject of music. At least it used to be. I don't know if it's a part of hip hop. I don't know. I can't tolerate a lot of that, but I don't know if young people today really understand what the notion of love is. To court, to send a love letter, to romance, to pitch woo. Explain that to AI. Go ahead. See how you do it. Love is the most barbaric. And the first time when you have a child of yours who's had their heart broken, and they look to you and they say, help me. What's going on here? Am I losing my mind? Oh, no. You're not losing your mind. You've lost your mind. Welcome to the club. This is what it means to be human. What does that even mean? What is consciousness? These are things which I would love to sit down and have God explain. And I think God would say, you're on to something. I like you. I'm convinced God would say, you think. You're amazed. You'd rather ask questions than answer questions. I said, that's exactly right. And God would also ask me, most probably, tell me, do a lot of people misunderstand you? I said, oh, are you kidding? All my life. Good. Do you scare people sometimes? I said, yes. Do you have a hard time accepting convention? I said, every single day. Good. You're my revolutionary. You're my contrarian. You're my maverick. Don't ever change. I'm going to take your calls. All the lines are full and the sky is gray. I walked into a church on a winter's day. Let's go to Dave in Pennsylvania. Dave, you're on another side of Midnight with Lionel.
Yes, I'd like to chat with you. You brought up something a while ago, maybe an hour ago, that you don't know where education will be in 50 to 75 years. I do not either.
Correct.
I have no clue where education will be for K to 12 in 50 to 75 years from now. Mm-hmm. Also, what was her name? Now, it's been a while. Mary was intelligent. She brought up points that stimulated you into basically how geography has somewhat, they say, developed into social sciences.
Well, I like that already. Alrighty, my friends, Lionel with you. Oh, I like that. Our number is 800-848-9222. 800-848-9222. You know, when there was a time, my friend, when your radio station you listened to defined who you were. When you would have a sticker on your car that played or that told the world, this is what I listen to. This is my station. Oh, that's a rock station. Oh, it's a progressive station. Oh, that's whatever it is. And despite a lot of this, I've never been a big radio fan. I'm more of kind of like what radio means. But a lot of times I would always say, I don't want to hear this music. I'm not interested in your music. This is not what I want to hear. And then something happened. FM. But FM, AOR, and album-oriented rock, and kind of this kind of experimental, kind of the way they talk, that, slow and deep, basso profundo, alternative kind of where they kind of bent the rules, where you could hear. We had some stations I loved. We had one WQSR. You could hear Brian Auger 1 minute and Ferlin Husky the next, and there was no hard and fast rules. Then came community radio, college radio. I love that. And we had this one in the 70s. It was a WUSF, the Underground Railroad. And at 11 o'clock, you would put on your Koss headphones. Remember the big Koss headphones, those big monsters, big. They called them cans because I think they had actual cans on your ears. And they would run or play a train going through the station, kind of a Doppler effect, where the train's coming in the station and then goes away. So with the train would go from your left channel in the middle of your head and out your right ear. It was very interesting. There was a lot of drug experimentation. Not me, mind you, but others as well. It was a different kind of a sound. It was different. And all of a sudden it became cooler. And then it started to become the parody, the voices, I heard something on Sirius XM. I don't know who this person was, but it was a fellow who was the prototypical 70s boss jock, used all the cliches, all the back timing, all of the little tricks that he thought was so good, which almost like it was so formulaic. It was like a museum piece. And it was wonderful. Not because I liked it, not because I think this is the way people listen to music, but it reminded me of that style when George Carlin did, Hippy Dippy Weatherman and Al Sleet and Wonderful Wino and all of the parodies and the exaggerations of what became comical. Coming up, my friend, let's go really deep and dark and really scary, shall we, in the last hour, about consciousness, what makes us human, and how AI could and most probably will destroy everything. 800-848-9222. Final hour coming up on Another Side of Midnight with Lionel. Alrighty, my friends, Lionel with you. This is the final hour of this thing of ours, 800-848-9222. By the way, you can always catch me on X. Oh, we should see what I write on X. Ooh, I still call it Twitter. I still use the word album. At Lionel Media. X is the first place I go to when I see what's breaking. Absolutely. Absolutely. So I forget one time somebody died. Some famous person died. And I didn't know how fast. I think I might have been the first person to know this. And I went into X, it was Twitter then, put in the name, nothing showed up. I said, I am the first person to know this. And the next thing you know, it hit. It is so fast and so immediate. Isn't that interesting? It is so fascinating to me, this story Again, if I were to meet God, I'm saying, do you know what you did by allowing social media? Do you understand what you did? You allowed people to potentiate weird behavior that nobody even knew was possible. Nobody even knew this was even remotely possible. Some of these people are this is the strangest stuff I've ever seen. Please bear with me. We have a friend who's doing something, and she's out in, I don't know where she is. Who the hell knows? A beach or something. I don't know. And first of all, there's a presumption that anybody cares what you're doing. Anybody cares. It's a presumption. You care about what I'm doing, number one. Number two, I'm going to be glamorous. And she was dressed as some kind of a jaleba, I don't know, some caftan. I have no idea. Dancing and prancing and showing the luminescence of her pulchritude on the beach. And I thought to myself, you pathetic person. Because what I think they would tell you, and this, by the way, this transcends even AI, they would tell you, this does not exist unless I post it. If you ever see somebody go on a trip, somebody will go to Europe, wherever, and they'll say one picture of here's a church. Oh, here's this great food I got. And it looks, doesn't look like anything. Poor lighting. But they just want to say, I ate this. That's very good. No. It's called tiramisu. Yes, I understand that. No, seriously. Okay, you ate it. Fine. In France and Bordeaux. Great. And they don't know if they want to brag. They don't know if they want to impress you. Or I think they don't believe it happened unless they record it. It's the strangest thing. I've got one friend who says, well, we're out and about, and we're here in, wherever we are. And I asked the question, I will weigh in. I said, is there anybody at home now? This is on their face, because Facebook I use very infrequently, just to promote stuff or whatever it is. And I'll say something to the effect of, does anybody know you're at home? Anybody know you're home? Are they aware that you're home? Do they know you're home? Do they know I'm home? I don't know. Is there anybody at home right now? Why are you asking? Because you keep telling me you're not at home. You're telling me you're gone. You're telling me you're going to be away for a while. Do you think that maybe you're at home? Do you know you're at home? You're telling people, why don't you just, is there a key? Is there anybody? The point that I'm making is, why are you telling people you're not at home? Why? Well, the only people reading this are my friends. No, they're not. They're not your friends. They're people you barely know. Mere acquaintances. I'm telling you, as long as I live, I am telling you, dear friends, that there are certain aspects, certain things, certain behaviors that I find absolutely, positively incredible. I don't understand them. I don't get it. I do not understand it. I do not understand anybody going to have cosmetic surgery where they don't look anything like they used to. And not for the better either. I don't understand that. I don't understand that. I don't understand. This is the worst, but I've got to tell you something because I really want to know. I one time did a commercial. I don't know what it was. It might have been something like, I don't know, Men's Hair Now or something. I don't know what it was. Something like that. And they said, do whatever you want. Do it in your own way. Because I always liked to do commercials. I always thought it was fun to try to sell something, but in a way that nobody else maybe had thought of, or maybe you have a new way of showing this. So anyway, the spot was, it was men's hair replacement or treatment or whatever it was. Tubes, rugs, whatever. And I said, ask yourself a question. If you robbed a bank, how would they describe you? Would they say, 5'10", 180 pounds with a toque? If they say that, it's not effective. It's got to be camouflage. You've got to say, really? Really? I didn't know that. Because that's the part. If I say, do me a favor, give me that coconut head you've got there. Yeah, can you get a coconut head? Great. I'm going to wear this. This is my hair. And they would say, no, it's not. What do you mean? That's a coconut head. It's a large coconut. You're wearing it like a hat. No, it's not. That's my hair. No, it's not your hair. Stop it. You're insulting me. You're insulting me. That's what I feel like. What are you doing with this? Do you get up in the morning and say, this looks terrific? Nobody's going to buy this. Nobody's going to think for a moment this isn't. I'm 85 years old and I got a full head of hair and it's jet black. It's black. I want to know this. It's a free country. You can do whatever you want. I want them to say to me, yeah, I know. But how many people would say, wait a minute, you mean you can tell? Yes. Remember when Marv Albert was arrested one time for his little particular kerfuffle with the law, they told him, Mr. Albert, would you please take off your wig or whatever? What? Would you please take it off? You mean you know? You're kidding, right? You're kidding. I mean, you're serious. No, I'm not serious. When you see pictures of Michael Jackson and you think, hey, Michael, they thought you were weird, and you were. Compared to the Epstein files, you were nothing. You were nothing. When you see pictures of Michael and there's some biopic that's out right now, I am so over Michael Jackson. It's not even funny. All right? So over it, it's not even funny. He was great, thriller, God bless you, weird, freak, strange, odd. And what's even weirder was the parents that allowed their kids to spend the night with Michael Jackson. Those are the people who should have been prosecuted. But anyway, when they zoom in and you can see his nose coming off, and don't you wonder what was this? What was this? It's just, remember Jocelyn Wildenstein, the bride of Wildenstein. You would be in shock. And she had no idea. It's dysmorphia, the likes of which. See, I find that fascinating. I want to know the dynamics. How do people see things differently? How do people, because there's perception and awareness. A hallucination is seeing something that's not there, but an illusion is seeing something that is there, but in a way that's different. It's exaggerated. The moon illusion, the way when the moon is at the horizon, it looks huge compared to at its apex. It's the same radius. Why does it look larger at the horizon? It has nothing to do with the magnification through. I want to know perception. I want to know the mechanisms of belief. If I say, this person believes in Islam, this one doesn't. What's the difference? What does this person possess? This one doesn't. What does this person see? This one doesn't. And the same thing could be with anything else. It could be love, it could be politics, it could be the human brain, the human emotions, the psychology fascinates me more than anything else. Every single day. And I guarantee you, the other day I was at the Short Hills Mall, and they have very nice chairs. I told my wife, you do whatever you got to do. I'm going to sit right here. So help me God. It was a symphony of observation. I loved it. Let's go back to the phones, back to what I call fun. Lance in New Jersey. Lance, you're on another side of midnight with Lionel.
And a gracious good evening, Lionel, the tuning fork of truth.
Thank you, sir.
Well, tonight you're
your theme I'm trying to catch on, I believe, is that we're a work in progress, and but you're a word in progress. Like you're the word. You have a responsibility, but in a way, you have the ability to respond and share it. You're not ignorant, but you identify how people ignore what's important. So in a way, you're not awful because you're not using your nose, but you can smell. You use modalities, like I say, in a music like symphony, and some of your callers are very much in tune with you, and that's the word when you used earlier, resonant, the frequency, the tuning for. That's what I'm saying. I think that you're musical, and the fact that like the gentleman called about your comic album. Like I remember the Far Side Theater and all those things, and the original. People have lost that. It's like we're somehow or another. There's they've hidden things that are so historically important in some part of the Smithsonian that no one will ever see it. And I think that's the fear that AI puts in people. I don't know. I forget it. I don't know who said it at the commencement that everybody, all the graduates had AI. They're actually intelligent, but it's.
Oh yes,
but it's not.
It was Steve Wozniak. He said, "You have AI. You have actual intelligence, not artificial. Actual." And they said, "We found out how to make a human brain. It takes 9 months." One of the things which I find so fascinating, and I thank you, Lance, and I hope you call me again, good sir. As a psychologist student, I loved developmental psychology. Developmental psychology teaches, there's a couple of ways you can find out how the brain works. One is to damage a portion of it and see what affects, like Phineas Gage, I believe the person who had that railroad spike through his brain, the first lobotomy. Another is to watch a baby developing. And one of the things I love is the notion of presence, the notion of object permanence, and the idea of here I am, this is where I am, this is who you are, and I am a part of this. And the whole notion of the parietal lobe and the God part, feeling I'm a part of something else. And when you watch this brain develop, you realize these are the rudimentary building blocks of how consciousness works. So you watch a baby and watch somebody who's been damaged, and then you say, that's what the brain does. If you look at psychopathy, the psychopath, what does the psychopath not have or have that other normal people don't? We will continue with this, whether you like it or not, on Another Side of Midnight with me, Lionel. Alrighty, Lionel with you on Another Side of Midnight, 800-848-9222. I mentioned this about, as we get into deeper as to what awareness is and consciousness. And there is it's almost like the Maslow, the hierarchy, so to speak. But, when you watch a baby, you watch somebody, you just watch the levels of your own sentience and awareness. That first very crude level is reflexive awareness. This is the most basic. You touch a hot stove, you pull back. It's not no thought, just stimulus response, Pavlovian patellar. This is reflexive. Next is sensory consciousness. This is where you're aware of your surroundings. The animals and humans perceive sound and danger and movement and hunger and pleasure and pain. They interpret something. The organism knows the environment exists and responds to it, as opposed to just reflexively. That's sensory. Then we get into emotional consciousness. This is feelings and emotional memory, fear, attachment, togetherness, anger, joy, grief. Mammals especially show this level very strongly. Emotional learning, this shapes behavior through experience. Now we're getting into the next one, social consciousness. Understanding other people exist as separate beings. This is when a child knows the socialization part. I'm with other kids. Hey, I've got to share. It includes things like hierarchy and empathy and deception, cooperation. Here's something, tribal loyalty. I'm part of the group. Reading social signals. Something's wrong. They're upset. Then there's the next level, self-awareness. Oh, I know that I know. This is the mirror test level. This is the individual recognizes itself as an individual entity across time. See, humans possess this deeply. A few animals appear to partially possess it. You recognize who you are and kind of how you fit in. I don't mean that you're aware of your existence. You're aware of who you are. Then we get into abstract. This is where the schizophrenic, one of the diagnostic tools, they can't abstract. This is the ability to imagine things that don't necessarily physically exist. Math, religion, analogy, metaphor, philosophy, law, art. Humans dominate at this level. This is something that is really interesting. Then, now we get into really good stuff. The next is metacognition. This is thinking about thinking. This is when consciousness explains itself. Doubting a belief, analyzing a motive, questioning reality, studying the mind. People who say sometimes, I have a question, I'm not sure about my faith. This is where philosophy and meditation and deep introspection, this is metacognition, is where it lives. Then we get into moral consciousness. Here we go. This is the awareness of right and wrong beyond simple survival. Animals do not have this. Sacrifice, justice, mercy, guilt, ethical reasoning. This is where religion, faith, spirituality, this is where the psychopath cannot exist because his head and heart are disconnected. And then we get into, which is really good, existential awareness. This is the recognition of morality and meaning. Humans uniquely, as far as we know, and I think it's true, seem haunted by death and purpose and eternity. Why am I here? What happens after death? Does truth exist? Is there a God? And this creates, by the way, religion and art and civilization. This is wild. Then we're not done yet. Then we get probably into the apex. One would think this is transcendent, or what some people call mystical consciousness. This is the highest level described in any tradition. This is experiences of unity, some Buddhists called it like ego dissolution, spiritual awakening, divine connection, cosmic awareness. I'm one with the universe, mystics and saints and meditators across cultures, enlightenment, communion with God, non-dual awareness, cosmic consciousness. So when many people today will be enjoying the recognition of faith, faith is critical for kids in particular because it teaches them and it shows them this is something that you may or may not get right now, but you will one day. And it's the idea of faith and mysticism. I'm telling you, it's critical. It's beautiful. I love this stuff. This is when I was just a budding, I thought I wanted to be a shrink, not a psychiatrist, but I liked psychology. It fascinated me. And what's really interesting of all this stuff is when you look at the levels, and then Abraham Maslow and other people came along, but you look at how do we say this? This is your thought, memorization. Then that moves to pattern recognition. And then beyond that is understanding, and then application, and then analysis, and then creativity, and then wisdom. And this is the thing that we're doing. And there are people that I know, and I don't want to name names, but they are the people who believe that the simpler you are, the more base you are, the more patellar, the more that you react. They think road rage. I'm thinking tactics and strategy. They want the immediate. It's the difference between men and women. Men are immediate. Women never forget. Women are the far more dangerous. And thank God that nature did not give women this weird kind of a strange testosterone strength and the inability to pump the brakes like it did in men. Because men are stupid, but women are crazy. And I mean that with all due respect. This is something nobody wants to talk about. To understand, when you talk to men and your children, you say, I want you to understand something. This equality stuff is nonsense. Yeah, God may treat people. Yes, you have the same right to exist. But if you think men and women are the same, you're out of your mind. And that's why when somebody comes up and he says, I'm a woman. No, you're not. No, you're not. I don't care what you have cut off or what you have added on. You are not a woman. Don't even demean this. Women are fascinating. Men are women. Ooh. Women are like cats. And I don't mean this. Women, remember, a cat is a combination of domesticity, but also feral. A cat never loses it. A dog is like, here, fetch. Okay. Am I oversimplifying it? Not at all. Let's go to Mark, who's calling in Illinois. Mark, you're on another side of midnight with Lionel.
Yeah, this radio show is becoming Lionel College. I like it.
Good.
Does anybody, a lot of listeners will know about the neurobiologist Oliver Sacks, who is deceased.
Oh, yes.
I think I agree with him when he coins a word for what makes us distinctly human. He wrote a whole book on it, and he simply titled the book Musicophilia. He thinks that it's what we can do with music that makes us human. And there was a fascinating story that this book started out with. A man lived through a lightning strike, and before the lightning strike, he had only been a casual listener to music. After the lightning strike, he had to listen to it all the time. He had to be composing all the time, and he was so, in his wife's eyes, obsessed with music that they ended up divorced. Now, I would say that being struck by lightning and having his brain altered was not his choice, but neglecting his wife was his choice. But
yes,
musicophilia is now, it's true that birds are a singing species, but I think Oliver Sacks would say that birds cannot do with tonal perceptions what we can do with them.
Oh, absolutely.
And
first, let's break this down. A couple of things here. When you are teaching someone, for you, even you must look at what a baby understands through, well, you don't have to teach kids, Mary Had a Little Lamb, or they understand music. They get it. Your child doesn't look at you and say, what is this thing you're doing? What is this? You say these words and you speak like, no, he knows exactly what it is. This is called music. I got it. Music is taking and punctuating nothing. Rhythm is the most interesting of them all. People who can keep time and not even think about it. Now people say, is this because of your heartbeat? No, Maybe there's some kind of synchrony somewhere. But when you show somebody, you say, now, let me give you something. This is called an instrument. And it might be your voice, it might be something else. But I want you to do something here. And I want you normally have left and right hand kind of a split. I play the guitar. It's two different things. Left isn't the hard part. It's the right hand. It's the strumming. I want you to do all these things. Remember the song, play, keep track of the rhythm, and you do it like it's secondhand. Where do you even do this in real life? Singing, music is not required. It's not a life. It's not required.
But that's what makes it human, because it isn't required.
But we
what would you
do
say
it.
About you talked about rhythm. What would you say about harmony?
That's even more interesting, because that is talking about, you're saying something I'm alike but different. I'm dissonant and consonant, and then being in tune.
Yes.
Now, another thing too is, here's another thing. To be able to sit, some people just love this, and to watch a child, this is the scariest thing. When you have what do they call it? Ontogeny, phylogeny, or recapitulates, or whatever this phrase is, where you can look at kind of like an embryo develop, and you say, these all look alike: a tadpole, a chicken, a dinosaur. Growing up, they all look the same, reptilian, and then you want to look at this and you say, what the hell do we have here? Do I have a dog or do I have a wolf? Do I have a cat or do I have a lynx? Do I have a bobcat? I don't know what the hell I've got, but we'll see. Because starting off, they all look alike. When you see a child who has genius, precocious, from the Latin precox, meaning pre-cooked, they called the dementia. They used to call autism dementia praecox. They thought it was a form of schizophrenia. But when all of a sudden you say, this kid is going to be is a musical genius. It's like pitch perfect. This is weird. And you're saying, I never taught it how to do this. Now, what AI does is, one of the times, which is very scary, in one of the programs, it learned Persian. It decided to just learn it. Nobody spoke.
Is Persian a tonal language?
No, but I'm saying, but the point is, on its own, it showed this prodigious tendency to do something. Another thing that AI did, and you heard about this Anthropic experiment, they wanted to see whether it would show avarice, whether it would show jealousy, criminality. It determined, somehow they set up a condition where this system, it's hard to think of what it is. Is it an app? Is it a computer? Anyway, they wanted to say that that the people who are responsible for this are going to shut you down, and gave it access to very sensitive information, which was all fake. So what it did was, on its own, without anybody teaching it, it decided that it was going to blackmail members that it was privy to in terms of this information, because it feared, one would say, and I'm using these terms loosely, it feared that it would be discontinued. So it immediately turned. Now, you would call that, is that morality or is that strategy?
Or did its programming simply tell it that these people were going to
But
do away
on
with it?
its own, you can talk to your Mac laptop all day long, and it's not going to do anything. This on its own. Let me also tell you something. When you start to become aware of something and you're able to dissect the component parts, you appreciate it more. I know so many people who are not, and I look and I can see it in their eyes, they're almost dim. They don't feel this. It's like they don't have all of the lights in the room turned on. They're not stupid people. They're not bad people. They're good.
Their discernment isn't very deep.
Yes, but they also don't have, for example, they don't have all of their senses. They don't have all of the ability to really ask questions. And the thing is that in our society, see it's the question part of it, which is the most interesting. One last thing before we forget. I love the idea of how moral relativism is important. We can decide that there are some people that do not deserve any kind of protection. They are not human. They are whatever it is, too bad. And at the same time, just like during the Holocaust and camps, people would drive home, I guess, to their families and love their children, and then tomorrow show up to work and exact the most conditioned, trained inhumanity anybody's ever seen, and they were rewarded for it. They either got
that's called compartmentalizing.
But it's also called moral relativism. For thee and not for me.
They have shown in psychological research that if you are leading a double life, so to speak, there are actually two separate sets of neural pathways that enable you to do that. And I'm thinking, well, the positive side of that is a person who goes to a foreign country and has to adapt to a whole different culture because they're a missionary. Then they're using that set of neural pathways. And then when they return to America, they use their more accustomed set of neural pathways.
Well, let me give you another one. One of the most important things that I think everybody should understand and be aware of is the Milgram experiment. And
yes.
Milgram experiment. This is 19. It was at the time of. It was concomitant with and simultaneous with the Eichmann trial, and it was a Yale psychologist.
Shock treatments.
Right, but it was a Yale psychologist who decided to set up this fake. They would put an ad out in the New Haven, whatever. Make a couple of bucks a day and be a part of an experiment. So they showed up to Yale, and they have the guys got a white coat, and these people came off the street, and they had this mock. I'm sure you know what it is, but some people might not. They had this mock electronics system in which they were told is in another room that they can't see. You're going to be asking them a question. When they get the answer wrong, you were to give them and deliver a certain dose of electricity, either high amps or voltage or whatever it was. And as they answered more and more incorrectly, you were to up the dosage, up the amperage, up the pain, and they wanted to see how far will people go. And it's not, you're going to get your $1.50 per diem or whatever it was. That's not the point. Some people, most people, said, okay, you're the boss. And all this guy said was, please continue. He didn't say this is science. He goes, please continue. There was one woman or somebody, the meekest, mildest Aunt B type, who was theoretically, think about this, Mark. She was theoretically, this guy who was screaming stopped making noise. She was increasing the electricity to what could have been somebody either unconscious or dead.
Right,
she thought nothing of it. Paul Tibbets, the Enola Gay, lauded as a hero, incinerated children, men, women, old people. He's a hero. He's our hero. He had to do it. This is where we kick it. Why? To end the war. Americans would have been killed. He thought nothing of it. No problem. Because in my mind, I'm able to, as you maybe compartmentalize, or I'm able to explain, this just has to be done. Doolittle.
But I learned that another subject of the Milgram experiment stopped right in his tracks and said, what do you people think you're doing? You have no ethical right to do this. I am getting out of this experiment.
Yeah, right.
But
and that
was
person,
the minority.
Yes, right. And he went on to be a loser. I have no idea. Remember, 10 years later was the Stanford prison experiment, where they had to stop this. And I forget the name of the fellow.
You mean Zimbardo?
Yes. He looked like a magician. He reminded me like the amazing Blackstone or something. But anyway, he took students from Stanford 10 years later, and he divided them into inmates and prison guards. And they were just friends. 1970, Hey Groovy, Woodstock was just last year. Peace and love, man. Long hair. They said the students who were enlisted or selected to be the guards. One in particular, when they gave them mirrored sunglasses, they turned into sadists. They had to stop it. No, I mean, stop it. It was people.
Yeah, they had to halt the experiments.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. It was. So we have in us, with all of our Maslowian hierarchy we are savages. We are capable of the most inhumane. As long as we have an understanding of why, either, hey, look, if I'm not going to do it, somebody else will, or look, it's for a greater good, or this is what war is. That fascinates.
Do you think music could make us less savage, or do you think it might have potential to make us more savage if it hypnotizes us deeply enough?
Well, let me tell you what happens. You want to take music? Okay, you want to play Andy Williams or Doris Day? Or shall I play some Wagner? Let me play some march music. Let me play some military music.
Yes.
Let me remember
didn't Hitler carefully prescribe the music that
absolutely
his subjects were to listen to?
Who was the person who first came up with the bagpipe during war? Imagine you're sitting there and all of a sudden you hear this. What is? Remember the old joke? Somebody said the definition of a gentleman is somebody who can play the bagpipes but won't. Anyway, Mark, I thank you. Have a good day, sir. Call me again. Let's go to Ed in Indiana. Indiana wants me. I can't go back there. Ed, you're next.
Yeah, no, I'm here, man. I've arrived, and I am one with the universe. And I want to thank your missus for allowing you to join us one day a week now, and because we miss you a lot. And but thank her. You know,
one day a week. What are you talking about?
You're on the other. You're on another side of. You're only on one day a week out here.
No, Saturday and maybe there, but here was Saturday and Sunday. Ooh,
2 days.
Call your programmers and immediately force them to change their mind. Oh yes, Saturday and Sunday, my friend.
But anyway, Daddy used to roll with the WQXR playing, and maybe it was calming his mind and just listening to that. And because I used to. Speaking of playing the guitar, I used to sit by the radio and just tune my guitar and listen and flip the dial around and try and tune it real quick so I would be in harmony with the universe and my own little universe. And when you get to this level of understanding, and you seek more and you try and do better for everybody, you know, you've accomplished. I guess the point of real being, you know, and we got to look out for AI taking over.
You know, I also want to know there is a role that psychedelics are going to play. I think there are people who are going to be using hallucinogenics who are trying to find that portal of the mind that allows you either to actually experience something new or to experience the perception that you're experiencing something new.
Lionel, they've been doing that since the 60s. What are you talking about?
Not the 60s. They've been doing that forever. They've been doing that since peyote. They've been.
Yeah, you're right.
Now imagine the first person though out there. Somebody is just tooling about, rummaging, looking for a tuber or a new plant, and somebody says, "What the hell is this? I don't know. Looks like a cute little button, a little mushroom or something." Oh, okay. Maybe it got in his hand. Maybe there was and he licked it or something by some serendipitous moment. And all of a sudden, the person who was on the first psychedelic trip, just imagine what this person is thinking. Imagine being in some medieval part of the world development when you saw the first case of Tourette's. You know, coprolalia, when people are spouting, you know, their inhibitory centers. Or imagine the first time somebody saw epilepsy, the first time somebody didn't know what it was, had no idea. Imagine the first person to understand lightning and thunder. And this is where religion not was born, but an appreciation that something is controlling this. I always like to think about the first time somebody experienced something.
Yeah.
What must that have been like?
the radio and listening to when I was raised on the East Coast, a pirate radio, and it seemed like it was offshore and it was uncontrolled or supposedly, and it's freedom of information, and that's why I used to listen to the CB radio and all the time. Friday night, the truckers would just let loose and uncontrolled, and that was
I had in my bedroom, and I had a CB. I had just this big antenna. I had nothing, but at night when you would have skip, I would hear just this, and this is not really during C.W. McCall and Convoy and everything, but I loved it. It was a combination of eavesdropping and hearing this, remember the patter, the banter, this almost a robotic, the phrases, it's kind of like camaraderie. It was wonderful. Listen, Ed, I appreciate your call. CB was, I don't know if anybody even does that anymore, if anybody cares about that anymore. It was so huge and so big. And there were people who had linears and people who would crank up the wattage and even listening to Skip at Night. And this is explaining amplitude modulation, AM versus frequency. AM goes below the equator because it bounces up and down. It's amplitude. Oh, those were wild times. It was like the first time that mankind heard drums or music from another village, from another place, the first time we ever communicated. And when we finally make absolute 100% understood communication with other species, those days will be grand. 800-848-9222. Lionel with you on another side of midnight. Mano de Bango. Love this song. This song and Ray Barretto's Watusi were just loved it. By the way, before I forget, I don't want to do this at the last minute. I want to thank Mr. Bill Lee and our good friend Jackson. They're doing such an incredible job. I can't say this enough, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, and I mean this sincerely. They say this. How do I say this? Mr. Jackson Warren and Mr. William Lee. Sounds like a law firm. They are important, critical. Can't say it enough. And we thank them for their work. They're part of this because whenever you hear something, whatever it is, there's somebody, for the most part, somebody who's involved. Remember, Bill, my favorite were the people in radio. In radio, you had folks, one was promotions. And you say, what do you do? I don't know. I'm in promotions. Oh, enough said. Are you promoting? Well, of course, I'm promoting. What are you promoting? I don't know exactly, but I'm promoting. And then we always had the engineer. The engineer, I've never seen anybody else, but historically, if ever you had to cast for a psycho killer, let's say you were making some movie and you needed to get somebody really to scare somebody, just go into the engineering department. These are folks who with all due respect, wonderful people, but a little off. In that whole kind of world, we had one guy who was so terrific. He was very calm. And as you know, in the world of radio, the worst thing is when you're off the air. And when you're off the air, I mean, it's like battle stations. And Bill will tell you that, right? People run. It's like there's something wrong here. And it's like, get out of the way. We're off the air. Okay, step inside while these people run down the hall and do whatever they do. I worked with a guy one time who was so calm. We said, hey, Joe, we're off the air. This is the engineer. He said, I'll bet it's, the Phasteris Gaben modulator arc was acting up. And he's diagnosing it. I said, shouldn't you be frenetic? Shouldn't you be running around? Oh, yeah, you're right. Yeah. Very odd. Very, very strange. But that was the whole world. I think, speaking of radio, I'm speaking about radio, so I guess I can say whatever I want. The best radio show ever, they really care, I think, was KRP. Except that sometimes they never wore cans, they never wore headphones. And they never wore anything that, how do I say this, that denoted, that was subtle, Bill, very subtle just now. But anyway, but they never wear any kind of a headphones. I was on, as you probably know, House of Cards. And I was on with Robin Wright. We were doing a special, or not special, but a scene, which I'm playing a talk radio host. And it was in Baltimore, shot at the time, and I'm in this room. And whoever did this, whoever set this up, had never been in a radio station, did not know anything about radio, had no idea about what the hell they were talking about in terms of radio. So I said, it was to the director. I said, listen, this probably doesn't matter, but I don't know if you're into authenticity, but I really should be wearing headphones, cans, because technically I can't communicate with the people in the control room. She doesn't have to. This was the first lady. This is Robin Wright. She doesn't have to. But I, if you want to be authentic, should be having headphones on. He looked at me like, anything else? I said, no, that's about it. He goes, great. And that was it. It was the scene, which I haven't watched it perhaps ever, but in any event. Well, listen, thank you so much, my dear friends. We will be back next week, Saturdays and Sundays, on another side of midnight. Again, Jackson and Bill, thank you so much for you. And thank you so much always for listening and participating and making all of this so worthwhile. Don't forget, follow me on YouTube at Lionel Nation and X at Lionel Media. Until then, my friends, I always leave with this valedictory, this sayonara, this adios. The monkey's dead. The show's over. Sue ya. Ta-ta.